expensive because we live in the world when we have more and more data. And more data actually means it's more expensive to set up a staging server that will mimic the production server close enough so we will be able to test everything. So it basically means that the staging, as we know it, environment in which is very close to production and we can test everything, this environment is now gone. And this is why we don't trust our vendors. And this is why the next question is, can we verify the update? Sometimes we say, you know what? It's just not worth it. It's just not worth it because the verification of all my production environments will take more than 6 months. Why would I update to the next version of Java if by the time I finish with my acceptance test, a new version will be out? And sometimes I take these costs and I say, okay, I'm going to do the acceptance test, but it will cost a lot, and this cost is on me, and I hate it. In order to make you update, the vendors try to put more food on the table. They try to make it more lucrative to you to update, even with all the risks of, with all the costs of acceptance tests. And that means that now you have to trade off between the features that we really want and the acceptance test costs. And the problem is that it's a vicious spiral that users don't update because they're afraid of the acceptance cost. So the vendors add more features to every release, making the release even bigger, more complicated, and more dangerous. And then users are reluctant to update even more. And then vendors put more features. And this is a vicious spiral that we need to see how we can solve. And if there is a solution, how can we hack around it or cheat around it and see what we can do? One of the solutions is this: update available, regardless of what we want it or not, it will be installed. And this is great for all the software that have low risk. And the examples are your browser. How many of you know which version of Chrome are you running without looking? If anyone knows, give me a number of your browser version in the chat. Let's see. Here we go. Daniel knows. Updated to 87. Well, anyone else? Yeah, there's also there's always one. So Daniel, good job. Twitter in your browser. This is here. Even Daniel can help because for any web app, you don't know which version is running. There is no way to know, and that's by design because they want to update it whenever they want it. Twitter on your smartphone. Anyone knows what version of Twitter they run on their smartphone? If you are, oh, here you go. We made Greg auto update his browser. On Twitter on your smartphone, you can actually see the version. Anyone knows? How many of you have it on auto update? Most of you. How many woke up today or yesterday to the new stories functionality and you're like, what the hell? Yeah, it was updated because there was no risk. Well, there is a risk that you hate the new stories, but this is something we need to live with. Your smartphone OS. Now here, that's a different story. Everybody know, if not the version, but at least updating the version of your smart OS is a cautious decision. You say, I won't update it today because it might break something. So this diagram only works if there are no high risks. What we want to achieve instead is an update that we as the users will accept even if there are high risks, because we want to build this trust between the vendor and the user. So let's see what we need to improve in order to build this trust. What can possibly go wrong during an update? And I'll start with a personal story. So I used to have, and I still have, a Wi-Fi router made by Google, and now the third generation is called Google Nest Wi-Fi. The first one was actually on a hub. That was the name. It was actually made by TP-Link and someone else, I think LG, I don't even remember. But what I got excited about is the self-improving system. And I thought that the self-improving system for the router is very cool. First of all, because I love new and shiny features, but also because I know that I won't go and update the router firmware for security patches like never. Instead, I want the router itself to do it. We spoke about that. And I was on a trip, like, flying someone on a plane, like a remote location where there were other people. And that was like 3 years ago, February 2017. And my wife is calling and she's like, Baruch, I came home and the kids are sitting in the dark. And I'm like, do we have like a power outage? And she's like, no, the internet is down. And they shout, Alexa, turn on the lights, Alexa, turn on the lights, and nothing happens. So obviously this day, the kids learned that there are physical switches on the wall, but also we didn't know what happened because our internet provider promised that everything is fine. And then I got this email that basically said, whoops, sorry, we upgraded your router and by mistake, it was reset to the factory settings. So now it cannot connect to the internet, so we cannot send the fix. So you go ahead and reconfigure it to get internet. And this is obviously a bummer because to get this email, you actually need to have internet. I was away, so I got it, and obviously we got it through our smartphones. But yeah, it's an interesting question. Sometimes an update goes so wrong that over-the-air patch cannot reach the device. What do we do then? The solution is sending an email begging for users to fix it, or instead doing a local rollback. Have a previous version saved on the device prior to update, and roll back in case problem has occurred. Now, this concept sounds familiar because it is familiar. This is a screenshot from Windows 98. I didn't find a screenshot from Windows 95, but I remember it was there even there. When you plug in a new monitor or you want to change resolution or you plug in a new graphics card, this is the message that you get. Desktop has been reconfigured. Do you want to keep these settings? This is local rollback, because if you are unable to reach the device because the screen is black, you don't know where the cancel or revert button is, it will revert automatically to the previous settings in 8 seconds. Now, we used to do it now, then we stopped to do it, and that's a shame because this is how you build trust. And you can say, well, that's a modem router, Wi-Fi router, that's an IoT, it's different for what we do. Well, not really. The principles of IoT are the same principles of updating any software in any network, any device, anywhere, right? And but IoT is very picturesque. So going with the picturesque, let's talk about updating cars, because as I mentioned, what can possibly go wrong? This is a Jaguar I-Pace, and it's a beautiful car. It was released just last year, and 6 months in, June 2019, 6 months in, they discovered they have a bug in the brakes. Now, the problem is that they don't have over-the-date updates. So each and every I-Pace that was ever released was recalled to update the software of the brakes. Now, the problem with the recall is that first, it's costly, right? Because we need to get all the cars in the service. But second, you cannot force it. I would say that the problem with breaks is a pretty significant problem and needs to be fixed. But what can you do? You can send an email and it will go to spam. You can send a letter and no one will open it. Or you can send a letter on the pink paper and write it in bold and caps. That's pretty much all you can do. Okay. Now, the solution is obviously implementing over-the-air software updates, preferably continuous software updates. And what are continuous software updates? They are like normal software updates, but better. To demonstrate how better they are, here's another example from updating cars. And this is updating Tesla. And Tesla does a very good job in updating their software. The releases are out the updates every 3 weeks more, give or take. And according to the internet, Tesla Autopilot has a very annoying bug called phantom braking. It basically means that the car is braking out of the blue without any reason, and not only it's very annoying to the driver, it's also very annoying because the driver cannot explain it to their family why the car suddenly broke and everybody got thrown forward. So it's really annoying. And there was a rumor that the fix is coming. The next version, the next update will have a fix for the phantom braking. And the people are waiting and waiting and waiting, and the update is not coming as it's not coming. And when it is officially out, it turns out that it took so long because they're waiting for chess and also phantom braking right there. And obviously the outcry was pretty significant. Why did we wait for chess when there's such a critical bug as phantom braking? It doesn't make any sense. Well, depends. Obviously, if you are on autopilot and you are not into chess, waiting for chess to fix the phantom braking is very annoying. But let's say, for example, you are a smart and rational person and you don't trust half-baked software of your car to drive you and your family at 80 miles per hour. This also means that you probably know how to play chess. And that means that chess is very important for you and the fix for phantom braking actually not. So even if the phantom braking was ready first, the people who wanted the chess faster were frustrated as well because they have to wait for their chess release when actually Tesla worked on this phantom braking fix that they didn't care about. What I'm trying to say is no matter how you define what is important for you, and obviously two people might consider different things as important, in batch updates, important features wait for non-important features. And there is really no way for that to happen. Most of the time, those batches occur for marketing reasons because the picture of the chess is very beautiful. The small line, this release contains minor improvements and bug fixes, is not. And if we, after an update, we open the release notes and we want to see stuff. We want to see a lot of new features. And this is why Tesla batches them together. But instead, they really should implement continuous updates and ship a feature when it's ready. Ship the chess when it's ready, ship the phantom braking fix when it's ready. And this is actually continuous updates. Now you might say, okay, enough of this stuff. This is all cars and routers. We don't care about that. How about some server-side core servers updates development? So here we go. This is a very old but canonical example. Night Capital, 2012. Night Capital was a trading firm, a New York Stock Exchange, electronic trading, 440 million. Well, they actually had, they were like number 4 in size back in the day, trading firm, very, very large, and they decided they want to update their software. And it was kind of a strange decision of reusing old APIs, old flags. It has something to do with how their clients were built. But the new system reused old APIs and did something completely different. It's like selling instead of buying, buying instead of selling, something completely different. And they literally forgot to update one of the 8 servers that they had in the cluster. And obviously, some of new clients send requests to the machine containing old code, and it was strange behavior. They noticed that it misbehaves pretty fast. And then what they do? The update didn't go well. Well, let's kill the servers that have the update. So the system would get to normal. But now new clients sent 100% of the requests to the non-updating server. And it took them 40 minutes to debug it live. They didn't have any monitoring or alerting or debugging. And long story short, they lost 440 millions in those 40 minutes, and a couple of years later went out of business. And there are tons of stuff that we can learn from Knight Capital and still didn't learn enough. The first is automated deployment. Basically, people suck at repetitive tasks. This is why they forgot to update the 8th server. Instead, they should automate everything, and the loop on your servers won't skip one just because it forgot. Also, they didn't update for years. Probably the last person that did that already quit, and the new people had no idea how to do it. And also, it was nerve-wracking event. It was huge update, a lot was on the line, and obviously anxiety and stress led to errors. If it hurts, do it more. Frequent updates develop skill and habit to a point that it's not a big deal anymore, and then obviously people are more relaxed and do the right thing. The story with the state, with their using the old flags, there are sometimes good reason for that, but then you actually need to remember what happens. You need to be aware of the target stance when updating, not only going forward, which means that your code should be backwards compatible, but also for rolling back. And this is where your code should be forward compatible. New clients should be able to speak with old code without making mistakes. And this is not easy. So that's a story, fascinating story. Read more about it. The link is in JFrog show notes. It's right here on the bottom of your slides. So go and read more about it. Fast forward to present. A year ago, Cloudflare gave everyone a 30-minute break from the chunk of the internet, right? So I guess you remember, it was like a very major outage of internet. What happened? Well, what Cloudflare does, they have routing rules, and they frequently change those routing rules to prevent DDoS and other types of attacks. Now, what actually happened is that someone wrote a misconfigured rule and deployed it. What happened next actually convinces me that the humanity won't die out of COVID-19, it won't die out of global warming, it won't die out of alien invasion, it's gonna die out of a wrong regular expression. That's exactly what happened. The rule that someone wrote contained the wrong regular expression. It made the CPU spike to 100%. Then obviously other routers, the routing changed, overloaded the entire network, and next thing you know, on their status page is affected region Earth, which was very true. Now, the question is why this rule was so devastating to everything. And that's because releasing a bug affects all the users. The solution that we have called progressive delivery, and it's about releasing to the small number of users first, effectively reducing the blast radius, how many people will suffer, and observe. If a problem occurs, stop the release, revert, or update the affected users. There are today systems that can do it automatically or almost automatically. And the thing is, this idea is not new as well. Progressive delivery you learned when your parents taught you how to do laundry, because on every fabric treatment you will see the following warning: always spot test on a hidden service first. This is progressive delivery. You try on a small part and you observe. You see, after 2 minutes, you need to check what's going on. And unfortunately, we don't do it enough in software. Progressive delivery comes with observability, because you need to know that something went wrong. And relying on people yelling on you on Twitter is not very good feedback, because it's not detailed enough, and also it's pretty delayed. So instead, you implement observability, and the three pillars are observability are tracing, monitoring, and logging. There is again tons of material about observability to read and learn, and I have some in the show notes as well. Another one is rollbacks. If something went wrong, fixing it might take time, and the user will suffer in the meanwhile. Instead, you implement the rollback, the ability to deploy a previous version without delay. The problem with this approach is that it requires a support from the platform. When you build your own platform from scratch, being like Kubernetes or whatever, you have the full control. But that's not always the case. For example, with mobile apps, you are dependent on the platforms of Google Play Store and Apple App Store. None of those support rollback. You cannot say, hey, Google, hey, Apple, take the previous application file, but the previous, what it is, like the jar file or the APK, and make it current so people will update and will stop suffering from the bug that I made. And then meanwhile, I will fix it and I will give you a fix. No, it's impossible. What you need to do is take the APK that you had, rename it to be the next version, and then submit it to review. Yes, of course, they already reviewed it, but they have no way to say, hey, this is already has been reviewed. Skip the review, just deploy it so people won't suffer. No. What we can do in this situation is implementing feature flags. And that is, we can embed two versions of the features in the app, the old and the new, and then trigger them by API calls. For example, there is a button that doesn't do what it's supposed to do. Instead, when people tap on it, it crashes the app with an exception. What can we do with that? We can make an API call that will disable this button or eliminate it completely from the UI, and just in here approves the feature flags. And again, there are a lot of libraries and frameworks now that let you embed feature flags in your application in a very elegant and simple way. Launch Darkly is one of them, but there are many others. Definitely recommend you to take a look. Feature flags are very, very cool. And now, funny enough, here, Optimizely, it's another one. Funny enough, Cloudflare failed again almost exactly a year after the incident that we just looked. And funny enough, it was exactly the same thing. So what happened this year in July is that Cloudflare did a maintenance on Newark-Chicago segment of their routing. And the engineers wanted to route that traffic through Atlanta instead of going between New York and Chicago directly. Guess what? Someone made a mistake in the regular expression of the config, and they routed all the traffic in the world through Atlanta. Obviously, Atlanta crashed. Other next in line took over, hit with all the traffic in the world, crashed as well. Chain reaction, everything crashed. Next thing you know, their status page shows affected region Earth. Now, what can I say? The same concepts that we spoke about apply, and don't do it manually. People suck at repetitive tasks. Automate those things of rerouting through a site that will generate the right regular expression and prevent us from sitting like barbarians without an internet for half an hour. So with that, let's summarize the concepts for continuous updates. They're frequent, they're automatic, they're tested as much as possible, they're progressively delivered to catch everything we didn't test, they're state aware, we observe and see what's going on, and local rollbacks are important. It's kind of an extra credit task, but when you need them, there are ways to implement them as well. So what we want to get to is when an update is available, no one asks us if we want it or not. It's auto update, but not only for a low risk applications, but also for the high risk applications, because using those principles, we build a trust between the vendor and the user now fearlessly can say, turn the auto update on. Whenever there is a new version, I want it, everything will be fine. Our goal is to transition from bulk and rare software updates to extremely tiny and extremely frequent software updates, so tiny and so frequent that they will provide an illusion of software flowing from development to the update target. And those are the words of Fred Simon, one of JFrog co-founder, who came with a term, the liquid software. Liquid software is updates so frequent that they look like liquid. And two of the co-founders of JFrog, Fred Simon, the visionary behind this vision, and Yoav Landenman, and yours truly, we wrote a book called The Liquid Software. And what I want, so Ari gave you tons of prizes in the raffle, but a small token appreciation from me for being here is whoever wants to get a hard copy of this book, I will be happy to ship it to you. Contact me. You can do DMs on Twitter. You can do message on meetup.com. You can do LinkedIn. Wherever you can find me, I'm Jay Baruch everywhere. Contact me, send me your shipping address, and I will ship you the book, The Liquid Software, that kind of summarizes everything that we spoke about. Before we are done, I want to talk about corner cases. So are there corner cases? Of course they are. If there is a surgery going on, you probably want to get an update of a new shiny, not critical feature for the machinery that is involved in the surgery. But I think that the number of corner cases is lower than you think. So let's do another poll here in the chat. Reply with a plus if you think that updating an airplane mid-flight is a good idea, and reply with a minus if you think that it's a bad idea. All right, they're all minuses. Perfect. All right, very good. Now I will, and Daniel asked a smart question. Daniel, very good. Now I will try to convince you that it's not as ridiculous as it sounds. And Daniel, to your question, is there a problem with the plane? This question is good, but it's too late, because the ability of updating the plane should be there or shouldn't be there to begin with. It's exactly like with Equifax. If they knew how to update, the next question will be, hey, we don't need to update for features, but we do need to update for security updates. But if they lack the ability of updating the software in time, it's too late to ask the question. They're already exposed with their ass out of the window for 2 months, and they cannot do anything about it because they don't know how. And when you look at the amount of minuses here in the chat, you can say, well, we don't even bother. Why will we support continuous updates on the plane if everybody thinks that it's a bad idea? So now let's see if I can convince you otherwise. So meet Airbus 350. Airbus 350 has a memory leak, and it has to be turned off and on, rebooted every 148 hours. Whoever thinks that, well, I will just avoid Airbus 350, add it to the list of the Boeing 737 MAX and to Boeing 787. The Dreamliner, the newest one, the shiniest one, because it has a register leak and it has to be rebooted every 51 days. There is no software without bugs. And even the most regulated, or one of the most regulated industries in the world that needs to get approval on everything. And frankly, if you are into piloting and you saw the level of software and the hardware they use, it's like 50 years back, just because it takes so long to approve anything new, they still have horrible bugs like memory leaks. Now, let's say you are en route from Salt Lake City to Melbourne or Tokyo, and you are above the Pacific, and there are no land in sight. And the co-pilot asks the pilot, hey, did you remember to reboot because we're out of this 150 hours? And oops, I forgot. Wouldn't it be nice to update it then? You probably think now that it's nice. But it's too late because we didn't think about it. So there was no facilities for that. But we really should have. Another example might be, how about hacking into, so you know how they have all the steel doors between the cabin and the rest of the passengers, and how we're not allowed to take water on the plane because we are going to do something terrible? We do have our terminals which have a USB jack, and inside there is Linux, which some of the smarter people can probably hack. So yes, the infotainment system should be disconnected from the rest of the plane network. But is it? Let's say they manage to hack it and hijack the plane. Wouldn't it be nice to apply a security page there? And you might say, well, it's all nice, but it's impossible to update plane software on the flight. Well, it is possible. Many years ago, in the design of Boeing 777, which was the first fly-by-wire plane in the world, they had a problem with stabilization of turbulence. And it's impossible to debug on the ground because there is no turbulence on the ground. This is the problem of, you remember, of staging. There is no staging for a plane for 777. So what did they do? They boarded all the engineers on the plane, took off, flew to the plane where there was a turbulence, debug it in real time, patched it in real time, and fixed the problem. So now I'm going to ask you if someone wants to change their mind, if they think that continuous updates on planes is a good idea. No? Gee, you are a hard crowd. In person, it usually works. Well, I have Daniel. Daniel, thank you. Yeah, is there a software engineer on the flight? Exactly that. All right, definitely need some security, a lot of security, but obviously with all the precautions, I think that the corner cases are much less or much narrower than we usually think. Updating software in a secure, precise, accurate, repeatable way with all the concepts of continuous updates in mind should be a no-brainer, even for mission-critical systems as the plane. So with that, thank you very much. I'm at Baruch on Twitter, and Liquid Software is the hash of the book. So if you want to say something on Twitter, use that. This is you, Jag. I guessed the hashtag correctly. Again, use that on your Twitter conversations. Liquidsoftware.com is when you can go and read about the book more. If you go there and kind of figure out that you want a hard copy of the book, a reminder, find me at JBaruch anywhere on the internet, and I will be happy to ship the book for you. And JFrog.com, it's where you go for the slides, the video soon, all the links, and the amazing raffle that Ari is giving to you, Nintendo Switch and JFrog t-shirts. With that, thank you, and we can have a chat now, like Q&A or whatever John has for us in stock.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that very thought-provoking talk. I'm sure there are some questions. So yeah, we've got time. If you've got questions, put them in the chat or use the built-in Crowdcast to ask your questions and get them answered. In the meantime, I will get the door prize winners geared up. Well, while we're waiting for people to ask their questions, I know I have one question, which this seems like, as I said, this is a very thought-provoking topic. It seems like you really have to think about every possible contingency to have the right frame of mind. Do you see this as a constant battle or constant struggle, or do you think that you can get to a steady state where you can be at peace with the concept?
This is a great question, and I think it goes to the beginning of my talk when I actually mentioned that in today's world, it's impossible to release software without problems. And then you say, but hey, you just told me that you want me to think about everything, but it's impossible to think about that, everything because I wouldn't have bugs otherwise, right? Just write software without bugs. How hard can it be? And it looks like there is a conflict there. But what I try to convince you is not think about every possible bug, but think about how you minimize the impact of those bugs so you won't lose the trust of the users in vendor. And surprisingly enough, even in the environments in which you think, well, I don't have the luxury to test in production, for example, self-driving cars. If I'm going to release something which is not 100% tested, it will create an outcry of colossal proportions and I will lose everything. So here's a surprise for you. In Tesla that I spoke about, there is a feature that it's called advanced updates. You can actually sign up for a non-tested version of an autopilot to drive you and your family because it has some nice new features. And this is when you go and you say, my God, who will be so stupid to sign up for that? And if I remember correctly, 60% of the full self-driving option of Tesla are signed up for advanced updates. So you will always find those people who are living, who are ready to take the chance for getting more new shiny toys. And those are the people who are in contract with you to get the bugs for the features, and you have the luxury of actually doing the testing in production with them as long as you do everything that we spoke about. You are protect them as much as possible. You will roll back as fast as possible. You will make sure that you know about their problems, preferably before they even noticed, but in any case, not much later. And this is where you can actually build this trust, even with the software, which is not perfect, because as we established, there is no perfect software anymore, if there was ever been.
Right. Great answer. It looks like we've got some comments you can engage with in the chat before we go to the next question.
Yeah, so Daniel is asking about the feature flags frameworks for mobile applications, both for Android and for Swift. I know for sure that they exist. Unfortunately, since I'm not a mobile developer, I don't remember the names. How do I know that they exist? The story that Google Play and Apple App Store don't support rollbacks actually learned from a mobile developer that told me that they are using feature flags to overcome it. Unfortunately, I don't remember the frameworks, but it definitely probably should come up with a simple search. It's just a matter of what to pick. So Justin said that Optimizely works well, and obviously thank you for this recommendation. And regarding the 60% that are on advanced software updates, Daniel said that some of those 60% are hoping that the bugs are fixed more quickly for them and not that there will be more new bugs. Well, I don't know how this hope can have any kind of hold in reality. You literally subscribe for getting software which will be tested in production as any other software sooner in a life cycle. So you're basically subscribing for bugs. This is how it sounds to me. It's not necessarily that I think it's bad. It's a trade-off that people make, and it's great that we have those people, and I'm one of them, of course. I love shiny new toys, and we make those trade-offs for building this trust for the rest of us. And I think a lot of vendors, and Tesla among them, do a very good job in minimizing the suffering of even those who stumble upon those bugs, and that makes it okay. So yeah, no, I mean, it's good that people prefer features sooner, because this is how we can implement a lot of the practices.
Excellent, thank you. We've got another question in the form here. This is from Nick Coleman. He says,
"Oh yeah, I see it. I didn't see the
great.
Q&A at all." Yeah, this is a great question. Have you ever seen companies put out regular updates even if they don't contain anything, just to keep the process of regular updates? That's a great comment, and I'll give you an example of something that you might call it differently, and then it sounds less ridiculous. There are drills that it's called, I think, I forgot the term, play days. You probably know what I'm talking about, so remind me the correct term in chat. Those are drills that are performed to check how we do incident management. Chaos engineering is one of them. We just basically take some servers down and see how do we respond in order to make sure that when it happens in real time, in real life, then actually we know what to do. It's the same drills are for updates. We actually go ahead and do updates that don't update anything, just to make sure that we know how to we know how to do it. And it doesn't have to be like a public update. Here's a new version. I downloaded it. Whoops, there was nothing there. Why? Because the company wanted to check how good their updates are. But internally, for sure, you can drill everything that it has to do with the update, even if you don't have it. It will usually have security kind of hat on it, and it will be explained by your security readiness. But in the end of the day, those are drills for updates.
All right, that was our last question we have queued up. Any last questions before we thank Baruch for the great talk? Get them in fast while you can. We also have the link to the raffle that Ari shared in the chat. Make sure you enter in that. Great Christmas gift. It's cold outside. Keep the kids busy inside. All right. Well, if we don't have any other questions, again, Baruch, thank you so much for the fantastic talk and definitely some thought-provoking topic here to think our shifting a little bit about how we treat bugs and our updates and deployment. Thank you again.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. Hopefully next time in person. I love Utah. I love Salt Lake City. So just invite me when we can fly.
Absolutely. We'd love to have you out again. And
all right. Thank you.
Right. And we will now switch over to give out the door prizes. Let me pop up one here with you. And if you don't mind lingering around, we have, future questions may pop up. So we can pull you back in or you can engage in chat. So SoFi is going to give out a gift, but they need a few minutes to get that ready. So if you follow the link in the chat, they're going to give that out after we give out our prizes. As JFrog mentioned, they can't give those out tonight, so they'll announce the winner in 2 days. But as always, we do have a license to Venkat's Agile Learner to give out, and we already ran the sheet here. So Deepak, are you with us tonight, and do you have a license to Venkat's Agile Learner? Just reply in the chat if you do, or if you don't, if you're here. If not, I'm gonna go to the next person. No? All right, let's go on. The next person would be Gregory Hendricks. Greg, are you with us? All right, and Gregory, do you have a license to Venkat's Agile Learner? All right, then congratulations. We'll send you that. We have your email, and we'll send it out to you. And the next door prize we have is our JetBrains license, and that is going to go to Casey. Casey, are you here? Give a little time, because I know if you're not expecting it, chatting is a little delayed. I don't have a last name, Casey. It's just Casey, and I don't want to read your email out to everybody. All right, let's move on then. We have someone named, am I saying this right? Is it Ingoba? All right, well, congratulations. Do you have a need for a JetBrains license? Can you make use of it? All right, fantastic. We'll send that out to you. And then lastly, Tech Systems has agreed to provide cookies again, delivered directly to you. I hear they're delicious. I haven't had them myself, but if you're interested in that, the next individual we have on our list is David Marsh. Are you interested in some cookies being delivered to your house? All right, well, we will send those your way. Thank you again, Tech Systems. I don't know if we have our sponsor here to say anything. If she's here, Kate can say something in chat and I'll pull you on if you want to address the crowd. Otherwise, SoFi, are you ready to announce your winner? All right. I'll pull you both up. All right, Justin and Irina, here you come.
All right, thanks, guys. We love sponsoring the UJug. You guys, it's always an awesome presentation. And the winner for tonight's is Daniel Gibby. So Daniel will, Irina will shoot you an email with the all the details. And thank you everyone for who entered.
All right, fantastic. Thank you so much to all of our sponsors and the great gifts tonight. As I said before, we don't have an event scheduled for December, so everyone have a great holiday, and we'll see you in the new year in January. Thank you, everybody.